Okay, autistic 10-year-old wrongly diagnosed with intellectual disability but is severe autism. IEP meeting just ended. School special education director says that if he can't keep a mask on, mom will have to pick him up at school daily. Sensory overload, wearing a mask is related to his disability. Isn't this wrong? And then it's in New Mexico. I'm gonna edit that last sentence about the governor. Um, and one thing to keep in mind that even within the New Mexico governor's mask order, there still contained exceptions to the mask rule. It's in there, but whether or not people comply with those exceptions, meaning a school, is a different story. Now, why is that? Because most people don't go through the effort of reading the actual mask order and reading the exceptions that are contained within it. And they get their information from, Charlie Joe and Betty Pat, at the department. I just made up Betty Pat. If you know of anybody named Betty Pat, let me know. And if you end up naming your child Betty Pat, then you need to at least acknowledge that you got that name from me. Maybe Betty Pat or Betty James Galini Pat. They tuck that in the middle. Okay, so Betty Pat at the State Department of Education, for example, did a training, didn't bother to read the mask mandate. This is how ignorance abounds, and this is how it's just regurgitated within the walls of government and in institutions and in religions, is that whoever is up here didn't have the time because they were watching Sex and the City reruns, and in preparing their training to the schools on COVID safe practices, didn't bother to check the mask mandate, and for those exceptions, therefore didn't include it, and now spoke to all of the administrators, special education administrators in the state, and now they have bad information, and they're sitting there going, well, it came from Betty Pat, and she's at the Department of Education, and she's so smart. No, Betty Pat was watching Sex and the City reruns and having some champs. Betty Pat couldn't be bothered, and Betty Pat threw together a piece of crap training because it was lazy and she didn't care. Guys, I can't tell you how often that is the reality of why problems exist in whatever area of government, whatever institution, within any business, within any religion. I can sit there and pinpoint back somebody somewhere who had a responsibility to do something, didn't do it thoroughly. And so therefore, bad information got let out there. And then you don't have a clue how all these people heard and absorbed your information. Only caught some of it, ended up carrying back 40% of your already bad message, and then propagated that as nasty little seeds to sit there and spring forth and be, burrs and stickers for everybody to step on. All going back to Betty Pat. And Samantha. Okay, so keep that in mind. The exceptions are there. So no, they should not early release the student. They should acknowledge that the child cannot wear a mask, and the data doesn't support, the science doesn't support masking children. It just doesn't. Sorry, guys, it just isn't there. You can sit there and even for adults, the result of masking was negligible with regards to reducing. And you just have to look at any of the data, plats when mask mandates. And let's take New Mexico, since this is the state that's on the spotlight right now. New Mexico had a state mandate for masks starting in May or beginning of June. Never lifted it. Still not lifted. It's been almost a year. And their numbers, if you look at their numbers, not any different. I'm talking about if you sit there and compare a population to a comparable population, and do those breakdowns. In many instances, it performed worse than some of those states that had looser mask mandates or no mask mandates. How does one explain something like that? So my point is that now, I know when you asked your question, it was in February. It was still in the throngs of all this, reopening in New Mexico, because the school started thinking about reopening in February. Now that we're knocking on the door of April, what is the situation now? Because see, now the fear is dissipating. So, there's a different tone with people with regards to how they're looking at this, instead of the crazed, irrational way that they've been looking at it for most of the past year. Okay? So, no, it's wrong. And if you sit there and go, well, they could just keep the kid home and service the kid. Well, the kid's not going to be a virtual learner. I can already see that just from reading the scenario. The second thing is homebound would be inappropriate. And we can identify safe ways, COVID-safe ways to provide this child in-person services in a way that would make everybody feel safe and fuzzy, by recognizing the reality of the exception that this child, due to the nature of their disability, cannot be conditioned to wear a mask, nor should they. It's akin to torture. And we should not be torturing children that, due to the nature of their disability, sensory issues, things of that nature. My child's one of those. Good luck. She can't get on a plane because she cannot wear a mask, will not wear a mask. Now, who is that negatively impacting? You cannot sit there and tell me that all this social distancing, and then you get on a plane and they cram everybody together, it's insane, the stuff that we're doing. But, anytime that, I don't know how long this is going to last, because she loves to travel. She can't. Because even though the ADA would protect her, we're not yet at that point that the courts have fully backed up individual liberty and the excesses of these businesses, kicking people and removing people from flights. And I understand that these businesses, they don't want, they're trying to get back into business. And so they're trying to have these consistent. I get that. And that's why I haven't forced the issue with my own child. I do understand, guys. I'm not some, crazed libertarian, trying to upend the world. I'm not. I'm living within this craziness like everyone else, and I'm tolerating it to a point. To a point. I'm seeing that people are starting to become more rational. I'm seeing that people are starting to lose that fearfulness. Great. Welcome. I've been here all year. So, and I'm talking over the last calendar year, because I made my decision in April, what I thought about all this, and I have been consistent, and I have been right. Not that I need accolades, but if you want to clap for me now, this is the time to do it. Okay. So in that particular situation, the school would be in violation. The school, quite frankly, I think that the school probably is in deep doo-doo if it's in New Mexico, because they've been, forcing the child into a virtual setting anyway, would owe this child significant compensatory services in order to make up for the disaster over the last year, which is a common theme in New Mexico. So if you happen to have a child in New Mexico, then you're in a different situation than most of the states, because most of the states have been open safely. Kids have been going to school, and there's been normalcy to a degree. Not New Mexico. So if you're in New Mexico and your child has been forced into virtual for most of the year and has been damaged by that, then call me. We have an office there. And I've had to live through it just like everyone else for the past year.